Good evening, I'm Sean Yao.
And I'm Gretchen Hong.
The big stories tonight. President Bongbong Marcos and the rest of the executive branch will submit to a lifestyle check, ready to disclose as needed, even their SALNs or statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth.
The government has ordered the shutdown of the Siquijor Island Power Corporation of the Villars. That's over poor service and a power crisis that has stretched on for weeks, impacting lives and livelihood in the province.
And COMELEC has upheld the cancellation of Duterte Youth's registration. But the party list says the fight is not yet over, vowing to challenge the poll body's decision at the Supreme Court.
Ang Pangulo, ang buong ehekutibo ay ready for lifestyle check. Ready po lahat. Kasama po yung SALN. Huwag po tayong lumayo sa issue o huwag yung mamulitika patungkol dito.
President Bongbong Marcos has accepted the challenge to open his statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth or SALN.
Sinabi po natin na ang Pangulo, ang buong ehekutibo ay ready for lifestyle check. Kaya nga po ready po lahat. So kasama po yung SALN. Mauna, mahuli man ang Pangulo, kasama po yan.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said this is part of the lifestyle check that the chief executive himself ordered among all government officials. This means the whole executive branch and their way of life will undergo scrutiny. The lifestyle check comes amid the controversy on anomalous flood control projects. Some lawmakers pressed for the president to take the lead, with Senator Risa Ontiveros calling on Marcos to make public his SALN. Castro, however, cautioned against taking the conversation away from the flood control issue.
So wag po tayong lumayo sa issue. Ang issue po ngayon ay tuligsain at habulin ang mga involved sa flood control projects. So wag po natin ibahin at wag tayong medyo mamulitika patungkol dito.
Meanwhile, the Bureau of Internal Revenue has started its own lifestyle checks on the 15 contractors mentioned by President Marcos in his report. BR Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr. said they will determine if the said companies and its owners are paying the right taxes based on their earnings. Government officials will also be subjected to the tax compliance check.
Lifestyle checks dun sa mga contractors at saka yung may-ari ng mga contractors. Nakikita natin na marami silang ari-arian na finoflaunt at nakikita natin na malaki ang kanilang mga properties. Yung ibabangga natin yan sa revenues. Titingnan din natin yung sa mga government officials. Lalawak ng lalawak ang magiging investigasyon ng BIR. Ito ay hindi lang simpleng administrative process lang. Ang layunin nito ay tiyakin na lahat ng kumikita mula sa proyektong pinondohan ng buwis ng taong bayan ay nagbabayad din ng tamang buwis.
Will the lifestyle checks ordered by the President provide sufficient leads in the investigation of corruption and flood control projects? Let's discuss this with our first guest for tonight. He is the External Affairs Director of Good GovPH, Jafed Ibanez. Welcome to The Big Story.
Yan, good evening po.
Jafed, alam naman natin pagdating sa lifestyle check, hindi bago itong ideyang ito. At nangyari na rin po ito dati during the Arroyo administration. We have seen it time and time again. What was the reception of your group when you heard about lifestyle checks? And I guess in this political climate now that flood control projects are being talked about, mas binabatikos na yung ganito. Anong palagay po ninyo dito sa pronouncement na presidente?
Ayan po. So habang ang iba po ay kumakayod para sa pang-araw-araw nilang pamumuhay, meron tayong mga anak or kamag-anak na mga politiko na nagpo-post ng mga luho nila sa social media, proud na proud sa kayamanang malinaw na hindi pinaghirapan ng sarili nilang pawis kundi mula sa buwis ng taong bayan. So naniniwala kami na mainam kung mismo ang Pangulo ang magiging ehemplo sa utos niyang isailalim sa lifestyle check ang mga opisyal ng gobyerno sa gitna ng anomalya sa flood control project. So maaari niya itong simulan sa pamamagitan ng pagsasapubliko ng kanyang statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth or SALN, pati na rin ang mga miyembro ng kanyang pamilya. So this is enshrined in the 1987 Philippine Constitution, specifically in Article 11, Section 17. This constitutional provision mandates the submission of these declarations and it's further detailed and implemented through our RA 6713, or also known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees.
And sa inyong grupo, no, para sa inyong grupo, Jafed, sino ba dapat talagang mag-undertake nito? Kasi kagabi, sabi ni former COA Commissioner Heidi Mendoza, dapat daw special task force ito.
Kami naniniwala po kami na dapat lahat ng mga nasa pamahalaan ay magkaroon ng lifestyle check. No? Dahil naniniwala kami na hindi dapat mahirap kumuha ng SALN mula sa ating mga opisyales dahil ang SALN po ay kinilalang public document at covered ng prinsipyo ng Freedom of Information or FOI na isa rin sa mga advokasya namin, no, sa GoodGov.ph dahil naniniwala po kami na dapat ang bawat Pilipino ay may access sa mga public documents, no, lalo na sa ating mga opisyales sa pamahalaan dahil yung mga sahod na kanilang kinikita buwan-buwan ay mula sa buwis ng taong bayan na kanilang pinaghihirap.
Actually, Jafed, I was asking, who do you think should be the body na maggagawa or
The body.
mag-undertake nitong lifestyle checks? Who will be conducting them dapat, in your opinion?
I think may power po ang ating Congress, no, to do the lifestyle check, especially since alam naman natin na for the checks and balances ng ating government, pwedeng magkaroon ng pag-imbestiga ang ating mga senators, sa House of Representatives or sa Senate.
Wait, Jafet, ibig sabihin sa mga hearing, dapat imbestigahan itong
Yes
mga
po.
salin?
Kaya mahalaga rin po na nagkakaroon din ng participation ang civil society organizations. So, especially ngayon, sa mga nangyayari ngayon for the budget hearing, di ba?
Pero paano yun kung iimbestigahan nila yung sarili nila? I mean, hindi ba mahirap din yun?
I
Baka
think
maging selective lang din kung sino man yung namumuno na yung mga kalaban niya. Di ba medyo mahirap yun? I mean, doing the self-checks in the same house, in the same floor.
Yes
Di ba
po.
sabi nga ni Majority
sabi ni-
Leader Sandro Marcos, no?
Opo.
Dagdag lang sa sinabi ni Gretchen, parang dun nga pagdating sa flood control project, sabi niya, hindi dapat kami ang nag-iimbestiga sa sarili namin.
Ayun po, nabanggit din po ni ML Party List Representative Laila De Lima din po na ayun nga po, parang tuloy na po din siya sa pag-iimbestiga or pagkakaroon ng lifestyle check sa mga officials natin dahil ayun, baka pagkaroon din daw po ng conflict of interest. Pero ayun nga, napakahalaga din, syempre, na tayo mga Pilipino, tayo mga normal na mamamayan ay may magkaroon ng oras or panahon para tingnan yung mga kanilang ginagawa sa pera ng taong bayan.
O Jafet, siguro ang ibig mo sabihin, dapat maisiwalat sa publiko
Opo.
yung mga hearing na kung saan nag-imbestiga dahil when we're in on it, when the public is in on it, mas nagiging effective katulad na lamang yung nangyayari sa mga flood control project. Pero how do you imagine this should go? Kasi, for example, I mean, itong lifestyle check, tinigil yan ng ombudsman ni Samuel Martires noong 2020. At ang sabi niya, ito daw ay flawed, vague, and prone to abuse. Ibig sabihin, nagagamit siya madalas sa politika. At paano mo masasabi kung ang isang tao ay kurakot, hindi naman din lahat ay maingay o kaya bumibili ng mga branded, na mamahalin na bag o sasakyan. Ano kaya yung epektibo at masasabi mong kumbaga lalabas tayo or we go beyond political theater and have actual accountability? What would be an effective kind of lifestyle check or investigation?
Ayun po. Siguro since nakikita naman po natin na yung mga lumalabas na mga pangalan po sa ating sa mga balita, no, na yung mga involved dito sa usaping ito, especially din sa anomalya, no, sa flood control projects kung saan bilyon-bilyon yung pondo para rito. So siguro ang pinaka-effective na pwedeng gawin ng ating pamahalaan ayun nga, siguro magkaroon din talaga ng participation yung mga civil society organizations, no? Usasain yung lahat ng kayamanan o ari-arian ng ating mga opisyales sa pamahalaan po.
Okay, and siguro step back muna tayo no, on a slightly different but related topic. Itong grupo ninyo, Good Gov PH, tell
Yes,
us a little bit more about this. I understand, grupo kayo ng youth, mga galing UP kayo, tama ba ako? Tell us, ano po ba yung mission ninyo, yung vision ninyo, at yung mga gusto nyong gawin at ma-accomplish?
Ayun. So, Good Gov PH po is a youth-led movement for good governance in the Philippines, founded in 2019. So, noong 2019 po, naitatag ito ng mga public administration students sa National College of Public Administration and Governance sa UP Diliman. So, we believe that upholding good governance is imperative in sustaining a just and humane Philippine society. So, in Good Gov PH po, we champion good governance through our 4 pillars: the community building, the civic engagement, education, and policy advocacy. So we believe that good governance is a collective effort. Our programs are designed to build a proactive and collaborative community of good governance advocates. We also believe in the power of the Filipino people po. We work with citizens and volunteers nationwide to initiate and localized programs that promote good governance. So ngayon po, nagkaroon din po kami ng mga civic hubs across the country para palawakin yung advocacy namin para sa mabuting pamamahala. And we also believe that education can bridge gaps in governance. We offer training programs for our members, sangguniang kabataan officials, and youth and civic leaders. And we also conduct research on governance issues. We engage citizens to participate in local governance and policy making and forward evidence-based policy solutions to pressing issues po.
Okay, thank you for introducing yourself. No, medyo parang first time namin kayo makapanayam. Pero
Yes,
Japheth, siguro with these key issues of the lifestyle check at itong maanomaliang mga flood control projects, pati na rin yung ongoing budget debates, tulad ng nabanggit mo, ano po yung babantayan ng inyong grupo with regard to these very hot issues of today?
Ayun po. So kami po, actually nagpasa po kami ng application po namin para ma-accredit po as one of the civil society organizations na pwedeng umupo po sa budget hearing as watchdog kumbaga. Since kami po gusto po namin makita especially yung paglalaan ng budget sa education, sa infrastructures, and sa health. Dahil alam naman po natin na ito po yung top 3 na malaki yung percentage mula sa ating national budget po.
Yun nga, yun din ang pag-usapin namin kanina umaga. It is good to have a Citizens Watch and a parallel Citizens Audit coupled with what COA does para talagang may checks and balances all around. But in the meantime, maraming salamat. Thank you for spreading the advocacy of good governance. Sana lumawak pa ang inyong movement. And thank you for joining us tonight. We have External Affairs Director of Good Gov PH, Japheth Ibanez.
Thank you.
And in related news, the Justice Department now has a potential whistleblower related to the anomalous flood control projects. Justice Secretary Boying Remulla revealed today that a lawyer for the said whistleblower has reached out to them. Remulla said the informant is one of the 15 contractors named by President Marcos who could be involved in questionable state-funded projects. Remulla also noted that information includes how some 5 billion pesos were lost in ghost projects in Central Luzon. And with this development, the DOJ chief is urging others to come forward and help in the investigation.
And I have been approached by a lawyer representing a potential whistleblower. And they have told me he's given me an idea of what happened in one of the projects in Central Luzon, in projects worth 5 billion, ghost projects. Yung modus operandi, yung hatian pera, lahat ng alam nila tungkol sa kontrata. Tsaka kung paano sumambulat yung mga irregularity.
Over at the lower chamber, lawmakers scrutinizing the 2026 proposed national budget seem to have discovered entries pertaining to ghost projects. House Deputy Speaker Ronnie Puno cited several projects under the DPWH that received funding while already being marked complete. Puno is now calling for reforms in the DPWH to address these anomalies. Meantime, Public Works Secretary Manny Bonoan has released a memo barring all officials and personnel from traveling abroad, effective today, August 29. The ban on the issuance of authority to travel overseas is in place while the investigation into the flood control mess is ongoing. Only trips for medical reasons will be allowed. The DPWH order will remain in force until November of this year.
Now, before we move on to other topics, I'd just like to bring up, since we saw DOJ Secretary Boying Remulla, who is applying for the position of ombudsman, I believe he could have a crucial role, or anybody who would get elected, because nga yung pinag-uusapan natin with Jafed, in 2020, tinigil ni Samuel Martires yung lifestyle checks. Pati na rin yung pag-disclose ng mga salin sa publiko. Kailangan mo ng permission from the official being investigated. So that's why I guess President Marcos has given his permission to disclose his salin to the public. Pero hindi ba yun yung magandang good first step? What's your opinion on that?
Well, you know what? It's always a good thing to have a lifestyle check. But the question is always, paano ba natin to gagawin? And yun nga kagabi, no, medyo ang daming food for thought na shinare si former COA Commissioner Heidi Mendoza. Sabi niya, yung mga problema dati is that yung mga mismong in charge na mag-lifestyle check, mismo sila nagiging corrupt. Kumbaga, sige, papasahin kita, pero, di ba, usap tayo, ganyan. Yung isa pa, no, parang pati nga yung COA, kulang daw sila ng gamit, ultimo daw drone, parang 2 unit lang ang meron nila para makapag-check. Kasi once tapos na yung project, and they usually do the audits after the fact. Ayun nga, pagdating nila dun sa lugar, gawa na yun eh. So, alam mo yun, pag may drone ka lang, paano mo naman kakalkalin nga? So, medyo, I guess,
porous ang ating auditing
good.
process.
Yes. Kulang daw sa oversight. Efficiency sa oversight. Maraming vulnerabilities, kumbaga. Yun ang words
Well,
niya.
mukhang mahaba pa yung diskusyon na yan. But in the meantime, the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines has rebuked Leyte 4th District Representative Richard Gomez over accusations of a media spin against him. Gomez recently posted on Facebook screenshots of several media members requesting for an interview with him over a collapsed flood control structure in the town of Matagob, Leyte. The municipal government has earlier linked the actor turned politician to the project, but Gomez surmised that someone is paying media to attack him due to similarities in talk points sent to him. But the NUJP reminded Gomez that it is but natural for the press to seek his comment, noting that, quote, media asking for his side on the matter actually favors him. The requests give him a chance to address allegations made by Matagob Mayor Bernie Tacoy, who has also criticized him for alleged lack of support during heavy flooding, and making them is part of journalists' jobs. The NUJP statement continues, if Gomez preferred to not speak about the issue, a simple no comment or lack of response would have sent that message without imputing malice or exposing our colleagues' private information. The NUJP also emphasized that the Leyte congressman posting screenshots with media workers' names and numbers is a potential violation of data privacy. This also puts the press practitioners at risk of harassment and fraud. For his part, Gomez's colleague at the House of Representatives, Congressman Ronnie Puno, likewise had a reminder. He tells the Leyte representative that explaining to the public is par for the course for any elected official. Puno also thinks Gomez's recent behavior calls for an ethics probe.
Being held to a higher standard does not just require magbarong Tagalog ka, no? I mean, dapat medyo maayos din yung pakikitungo mo sa lahat ng mga nakasapaligid mo. Kaya tayo naging legislator dahil tingin ng tao marunong tayo magpaliwanag. Tapos yung ganyan na personal na napakalinaw na kailangan may paliwanag, hindi niya gagawin. And then if you compound the issue by insulting people, no, hindi maganda talaga yun. No, I think, the ethics committee should be brought into that.
Still to come, the Energy Regulatory Commission has slapped Siquijor's power provider with a closure order over its poor service. We speak to Energy Secretary Sharon Garin about the impending shutdown of the Villar-owned SIPCOR. After this quick break, keep it here. You're still watching the big story here on One News. The Energy Department has ordered the shutdown of Siquijor Power Corporation, or SIPCOR. The the province's electricity provider owned by the Villars. Energy Secretary Sharon Garin says the ERC revoked SIPCOR's provisional authority to operate for its poor service, affecting the delivery of public services and causing business disruptions in Siquijor. Since President Marcos visited SIPCOR's facilities on June 11, the Central Visayas Island has endured an average of 31 outages per month, with some lasting up to 11 hours a day. For Garin, this is a clear sign that SIPCOR cannot provide the service it promised. The DOE has ordered SIPCOR to shut down its plants and synchronize them with new generating units provided by Total Power Incorporated. Total Power signed emergency power supply agreements last week with Siquijor's distribution utility, Procielco, for 15.3 megawatts of supply coming from 3 generation facilities. In a statement, SIPCOR confirms that the ERC's decision will exhaust all remedies available to the firm. Siquijor Governor Jake Vincent Villa declared a state of calamity in the province back on June 5 due to the crippling power outages. SIPCOR still has 15 years left in its 25-year contract, but Villa said it has failed to modernize the island's sole and aging power plant. SIPCOR is a subsidiary of Villar, holding firm Prime Asset Ventures Incorporated. As promised, we have Energy Secretary Sharon Garin joining us again tonight. Good evening, Sec, and welcome to the big story.
Good evening, and thank you for having me today.
All right, so tell us the events that led up to today. We know that you visited Siquijor with President Bongbong Marcos a couple of months ago. No improvement since then, we're guessing?
We started visiting Siquijor way back pa, actually, and I think in this month I've been there 3 times already, just to inspect and evaluate if what's the situation like. So we started the monitoring, the daily monitoring ever since, actually we started on May 6 before elections, and most especially when the president visited. So mga 75 days na yung daily monitoring namin of the situation in Siquijor.
Oo, kaya lang, naalala ko yung presidente, he says he is giving them 6 months to be able to stabilize the power supply there. What led to the decision to shut down SIPCOR and just move on?
Yes, the 6-month directive was a directive to the Department of Energy, NEA, and ERC, not to SIPCOR.
Okay.
It was ang instructions ng presidente na ayusin na yan at dapat within 6 months, meron na tayong long term. Because we could have had band-aid solutions. Yung pasok kami ng mga ibang gensets galing sa Palawan, kumuha kami, galing Surigao. But we cannot have band-aid solutions when we talk about electricity for a long period. Kasi madali lang sabihin, sa 6 months meron na tayo, but every day, the people suffer 11-hour brownouts, minsan sobra pa, minsan less, but it's almost every day na, as per our observation, and according to the report of the University of the Philippines, since January pa 2024, they have been experiencing that. And worse during summer this year. So, it was 6 months maximum. So, ang decision ng DOE, NEA, and eventually ERC, is to finish it na kasi the longer we wait, the more people suffer. So, kaya naman pala 1 month eh. So, kung kaya namin, then we did it in 1 month. And then that proves lang na with the concerted efforts of all the agencies, it's possible to resolve this issue.
Pero in the interim, no, nung 75-day monitoring period ninyo, like were you able to notice any improvements at all done? Kasi based on the reports coming out today, Sec, parang walang nagyaring improvement at all.
So nung dumating yung presidente, halimbawa, the days following that, it improved, no? Yung level ng inventory nila, ng reserva nila ng fuel, it improved. The outages, yung mga brownout nila, kumonte. But that's only for a few days. The president went there on June, and then come July, middle of July, it even got worse. The plants, out of their 9 plants, I think at a certain point, 5 yung hindi gumagana. So, it improves. Sometimes, 4 na lang yung hindi nagpa-function. Minsan, 5 na naman. So, there was no consistency. Minsan, it's a good better, not good, but better than the previous ones. But it gets worse also. So, there doesn't seem to be any consistent improvement. Walang, minsan kasi, even after the president mentioned it in the SONA, which is quite unusual for the president to mention a certain generation company, still there was no improvement. So we decided now, enough of waiting, because they have proven, they have shown according to records na hindi talaga mag-i-improve to. So we decided, enough now, we cannot rely on this. So we came in na and built a new power plant na lang.
What do you think caused the lack of improvement? Ito po ba ay dahil sa pagpapabaya or sa lack of resources to invest again into the business? Ano po kaya yung pinakadahilan kaya hindi rin nasolusyonan ng SIPCOR?
I don't want to get into like what's the internals of the company, but I can base it on our observations. For example, in the fuel side, kailangan kasi 10 days ang kailangan mo yan na reserve kasi baka hindi maka-deliver yung supplier mo ng diesel. Sometimes 2 araw lang yung reserve, sometimes 4 days, 5 days. I think a few lang, about 20 days, the 75 days, it complied with the 10-day requirement. So, and then yung kanilang generation sets nila, many of those are not working. I think maybe baka kulang din sa maintenance, but so it means that there is no clear intention of the company of the generation company to improve their service. Consistent lang, ganun lang. Yung parts may kulang, minsan fuel and maintenance nila. We have observations. We've done so many evaluations, trips to Siquijor. Even UP, we got them involved to assess the plants. Yun talaga yung findings. It cannot supply the demand that is incumbent upon them because of the contract they have with Proshelco, which is the electrical.
Okay, and ano naman po ang sabi ng SIPCOR to this? Did they just take it sitting down, or do they have any avenues to appeal this, or irrevocable na talaga?
We have done 75 days of daily observation, daily reporting. 75 days na chance nila to improve their performance, and we haven't seen that. That it came to a point that ERC came in after all their hearings, because ERC started hearing this after starting July pa. And then they made a decision to cancel na nga their contract, or their ang SIPCOR. So they've had chances already. 2 buwan na or even more since May pa, we've been giving them chances na and hoping that they would improve. So now the order of ERC, which was issued today, is executory na siya immediately. So today we started na shifting to getting the power from our new power plant. And then, is there a recourse for them? Yes, this is a democracy. They have a recourse to appeal that. So that we will wait na lang what their actions are. But if it is about chances of improving their performance, I think more than enough na yung time. Kasi 1 day nga is long enough to not have electricity. Imagine another 75 days pa na kulang pa yung electricity sa Siquijor. I think that's enough suffering for the people of Siquijor.
Was it easy for you to find the next company willing to shoulder all of this and actually meet the demands of the Department of Energy? And pareho rin po ba, hindi po ba mahihirapan na i-shift yung power lines?
We have a new company now, Total Power Inc., that's going to provide about 15 megawatts over and above what is needed in Siquijor, which is about 9 megawatts lang siya. This is a new company in which we have directed way back kasi ang NEA to get to contract, no, for EPSA, which is an emergency power supply agreement, and they have recently signed up with Total Power Inc. So eto, mas marami ning gensets nila. NEA and Procelco is on top of it. We have even helped them build their power plant para to make sure that they can deliver. EPSA, like emergency power supply agreement, and not unlike the normal power supply agreement, is good enough for 1 year lang. So that year also they can also enter into agreement with Procelco eventually if they want a longer period. Pero we have that, and also we have also the option now we're also getting into contract for solar power. Parating na rin about 5 megawatts within the year. We will find a supplier for that, and we are also have an agreement with Siquijor Province para rin we can put solar panels on their buildings, which is about 1 megawatt then, and then show them how to conserve energy also in Siquijor. So there are more activities that will follow this. First step, we just wanted to make sure, whatever we do in the future, we just wanted to make sure na whatever we do, whatever decisions we make, we are sure na steady ang power sa Siquijor.
And I'm sure yun lang din naman yung gusto marinig ng lahat ng mga taga-Siquijor, including Governor Villa. No? Pero, so, just to clarify, Sec, in the 1 year, no, while the EPSA is in place with Total Power, meron din silang, kumbagang right or opportunity para magbid at maging yung totoo na talaga na solid and stable supplier for Siquijor.
Correct. Because if they do not perform, then I would object to them participating in the next bidding for the contract, which is a longer term. Kasi anybody who wants to supply, wants to enter into a contract as a public utility for a public service, then should have a good track record. So that's what the discipline that we want in DOE to impose on all our stakeholders na kailangan, kung gusto mo talaga maging public utility or you want to deliver public service, you have to abide by the rules, and you have to have concern to the people that you charge, no? Kailangan talaga a good track record for you to participate in any bidding that our utilities would offer.
Can you tell us a little bit about the track record of Total Power Inc.? You said it's a new company. Who are the partners here, and how did they come up? I mean, why were they chosen for this?
They were the ones that I'm not privy to the background of the company because this is done by Procelco together with Nate. No, but as far as yesterday, I went to Siquijor to check the construction of the power plant. At ano naman, they really worked hard to deliver kasi umulan pa eh. Malakas ang ulan sa Siquijor this past 2 days eh. Hirap na hirap sila to install the gensets, but I have seen the commitment that they have to deliver the power plants on time. Actually, they delivered it in 2 days lang, na set up kaagad nila. And today they are already transitioning na sila na magsusupply sa buong isla. So far they are performing well. And I do believe that with all the experience of NEA and Procelco, they have been conscious of the fact that they have and if they do, should they perform, we'll have the option na rin to ask ERC to cancel their contract.
And nabanggit niyo, no, you're also, as a backup, gonna install rooftop solar units around the province. Sino po yung mag-undertake nito? Is it the DOE? I think
the province of Timor. My team kasi went there and they made an assessment. Alam mo, maganda kasing program to, promote ko lang. Our team goes there and they assess, they check your light bulbs, your air conditioner, and then they check kung ano yun ba, does it consume a lot of electricity or not, and then we advise them how to save. So ina-assess namin, napalitan na ngayon mga light bulbs din sa Kapitolyo. Thank you for Governor Villa. And then the rooftop solar, I think they will bid it out. By ang deadline namin dyan by November 1 or I think December 1 installed already, and that will be equivalent to about 1.5 megawatts. So malaking tulong yan. It will be the provincial government, depending on the model that they want to enter into the model contract. So magandang proyekto yan ng provincial government. We were just there to give them assistance so that they would know what are the terms that they would ask for from the developers.
In the same line of discussion, dahil we're talking about solar already, and we do know there's a shift to EVs. Marami na po tayo nakikita sa daan ng mga electric vehicle. Magtataka lang ho ako, kakayanin kaya ng grid natin? I mean, I remember us talking about a possible power crisis happening down the line in the near term. And we have this surge of demand coming from the EVs. Ano po yung napo-foresee nyo dito sa sector na ito at paano kaya maapektuhan yung supply natin?
It won't, the impact won't be huge kasi hindi pa ganun kabilis ang uptake ng electric vehicles, hindi pa ganun kabilis. So it will still be beneficial and it will still be kaya pa naman ng system natin. We have more power plants coming in. If you remember in the speech of the president during the SONA, we have about 200 power plants coming in within his term up to 2028. So those can provide addition to the growth of our demand. If we shift to EV, which is I think right now mga 10% yung projection namin, kaya pa ng supply natin ang EV. So, and I would encourage EV actually kasi not only for the environmental side, but if you use, I think diesel, mga 5 pesos per kilometer ka, 5.70 yata. But if you use electric vehicle, that's about 1 peso and 75 centavos, which is cheaper really for Tsaka hindi ka rin any volatility of the international market ng diesel.
Sabi po nila kasi pag galing sa coal-powered plant yung source mo, kumbaga parang nagiging pareho pa rin yung overall effect niya to the environment.
Na-defeat, no? Na-defeat yung purpose ng
may ganun
electric
pong argument
vehicle.
kasi.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're correct in that sense. Pero you have to remember that we have, eventually by 2030, we will have 35% renewable in our energy mix. And by 2040, we will have, nag-increase, mag-50% na rin siya. So, all these things, I mean, there are different parts of the system, pero kung magsabay-sabay yan, we do have a plan, we have targets that will make it cleaner and greener also, our power supply.
Well, that's great to hear.
Oo nga, finally, we can help achieve our own no carbon footprint goals. But thank you so much for your time tonight. Energy Secretary Sharon Garin, maraming salamat.
In other news, the personalities allegedly behind the disappearance of several Sabongeros are now under immigration lookout. According to Justice Secretary Boying Remulla, those under the Immigration Lookout Bulletin order are gaming tycoon Charlie Atong Ang, actress Gretchen Barreto, former Metro Manila Police Chief Jonel Estomo, and a few others. A lookout bulletin, however, does not prevent any of the subjects from leaving the country. In fact, according to Remulla, one of Ang's siblings already went abroad and has not yet returned. Meanwhile, the people behind the missing Sabongeros case are set to undergo preliminary investigation. Prosecutor General Richard Fadulion said subpoenas will be issued to over 60 respondents next week. Now, these people are facing charges of murder and serious illegal detention. Fadulion is considering filing a petition to place them under hold departure order.
Time to pause for another very quick breather, but when we return, Duterte Youth again calls unconstitutional the COMELEC, reaffirming its decision to void the party list's registration. We will have the poll body spokesperson, Attorney Rex Laudianco, addressing this issue next. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the big story. Duterte Youth Party List will file a petition before the Supreme Court on Monday, September 1, to declare the COMELEC's cancellation of their accreditation unconstitutional. The group is hopeful that, quote, kung matapang na idineklara ng Supreme Court na unconstitutional ang aksyon ng lampas 200 na congressmen laban kay VP Sara Duterte, what more itong 5 COMELEC commissioners who voted to cancel a top-winning 2025 party list. Duterte Youth added, quote, ngayon lang tayo nakakita ng ganitong mga klaseng opisyal na kayang ipanalo ang talo, kayang ipatalo ang panalong panalo. The group further insinuated that there are COMELEC insiders and party list losers negotiating to disqualify Duterte Youth so that their nominees can get into Congress. Recall that Duterte Youth won 3 congressional seats in the midterm polls in May after garnering more than 2 million votes. But their proclamation has been suspended by the COMELEC 2nd Division due to pending cases, including missing documentation as detailed in an election protest filed against the group by other youth leaders since 2019. Duterte Youth filed for a motion for reconsideration, but the COMELEC en banc voted 5-1 in favor of the cancellation of the group's accreditation.
Hindi po ganun kadali ang issues, komplikado ang issues, at number 2, sa palimit na pagpapalit ng miyembro ng komisyon. Mas maganda po yan bilang pagkilala rin sa karapatan ng mismong naturang party list na ma-question ang naging desisyon ng Korte Suprema. At the same time, kami po ay handa na idepensa naman yung naging desisyon na yan ng COMELEC en banc sa Korte Suprema.
At this point, let's bring in COMELEC spokesperson Attorney Rex Laudianco to join us tonight to answer some questions. Magandang gabi po sa inyo, Attorney.
Magandang gabi po. Magandang gabi po sa lahat ng ating taga-subaybayan, taga-pakinig.
Attorney Rex, ito po ba ay pinal na ang itong resolusyon na ito na hindi na po talagang maaaring umupo ang Duterte Youth nominees? At pangalawa, meron po ba tayo mga bagong revelations after studying this whole case that led to the decision of the COMELEC en banc?
Una po sa lahat, the decision is final insofar as the Commission en banc is concerned. Tama po yan. But the question is, immediately executory na ba ang decision? Hindi pa. Meron pong pagkakataon ng ating Duterte Youth para umakyat sa ating Supreme Court sa pamamagitan ng isang petition for review and certiorari. At gaya na rin po ng napahayag ni Chairman Garcia kanina, yan po ay magagawa sa 30 araw. At dahil nga po ito ay cancellation ng kanilang registration, merong 30 days po para po maging final and executory ito kung sakaling wala pong may issue na temporary restraining order sa bagay na ito. Patungkol naman po sa ikalawang tanong, yung sa mga revelations at iba pa, wala naman po, kundi talagang nakita po ng Commission en banc na nabusisi na maigi ng COMELEC 2nd Division ang kasong ito. Lahat ng kanilang factual at evidentiary findings ay sinustain ng Commission en banc. At dahil dito, nagkaroon po ng pagboto ng 5-1-1 kung saan 5 miyembro ng komisyon ang bumoto na i-sustain at i-affirm ang desisyon ng pagkansela ng registration ng Duterte Youth. Yung 1 po ay dati na rin pong bumoto yung isang miyembro ng 2nd Division pabor sa Duterte Youth, at yung 1 naman po mismo ay si Chairman Garcia na hindi nag-take part sa bagay nito dahil nagkaroon po siya ng isang dating professional relation bilang abogado ng Duterte Youth Party List.
Okay, and Attorney Rex, ito na yung mahirap na part, no, yung mathematics. Ano po yung magyayari dun sa 3 seats ng Duterte Youth? Paano po yung proseso ng pag-farm out nito? And since nabanggit nyo nga, may 30 days muna bago maging final and executory kung maglabas yung Supreme Court ng TRO. Ano po yung mga timing nito?
Kung hindi po maglalabas ng TRO. Ang timelines po natin dito, honor po natin yung tinatawag nating judicial courtesy. Yan po ay gagawin natin dahil alam naman po natin na talagang may date na nga po sa Lunes ay magsasampa sa Supreme Court. Bibigyan po natin talaga ng sapat na panahon nating Korte Suprema na revisahin ang bagay nito. Titingnan din natin kung mag-i-issue ng TRO. Kung sakali man pong hindi at umabot sa 30 araw na walang TRO, ay tuturing po nating magiging final and executory ang bagay na ito. Dun sa atin naman pong pag-compute, ano na nga ba ang mangyayari? Wala pa po sa desisyon na ito ng COMELEC yung gagawin natin siguro ay magandang tawagin na parang reapportionment or distribution ng 3 seats. Ito po ay pupuntahan natin kung sakaling maging final and executory na ang decision. Ito po ay sa pamamagitan na rin siguro ng isang writ of execution. Hindi pa po tayo humantong sa punto na yan. Ngunit inaaral na po ito ng COMELEC. Ano nga ba ang mangyayari? Kuhugot ba o magagaling dun sa bottom ng mga party list yung madadagdag na seats? O kaya po ay magagaling po ba yan? Magkakaroon ba ng recomputation? Or magkakaroon ba ng sabihin na natin isa pang recomputation dahil yung mga nakakuha ng isang seat o 2 seat ay madadagdagan pa ng isa? Yan po ay mga bagay na tatawirin po natin pag nandun na po tayo sa final and executory part.
Oo. Pero kung sakasakali ho, I mean, if we do the first option na yung bottom party list, sino-sino po yung mga party list na maaaring makapasok?
Sa ngayon po ay hindi ko hawak kung sino po yung nandun sa dulo. Ito nga po ay patunay na talagang hindi pa namin tinitignan sa ngayon ang bagay na yan. Talagang nakatuon lamang po kami sa decision po.
Okay. Another question regarding this Duterte Youth decision. Nagkaroon po ng issue doon po sa kanilang first nominee, si Drixie May Suarez Cardema, over her using the surname Cardema. Ito po ba ay nagkaroon ng resolution? Kasi siya po, if I understand it correctly, siya ay sister of the wife of Ronald Cardema and she used the surname of the husband.
Tama po. Wala pa naman po resolution dahil wala pa naman po formal na kaso dito o iba pang question. Ito naman po ay ginawa lang po ng ating COMELEC Law Department ay sumulat dun kay Congresswoman Drixie para tanungin, mag-inquire, ano nga ba yung mga pangyayari sa likod ng paggamit niya ng apelyido na Cardema. Ito po ay parte pa ng mga maaari nating sabihing fact-finding process ng COMELEC.
But will it not matter anymore just in case the Supreme Court upholds the cancellation of their registration? Or is that a separate matter altogether because it might consist of material misrepresentation?
Opo, hindi pa po natin sinasarado kung ito po ay matatapos ba kung sakaling magkaroon ng aksyon ang ating Supreme Court. Dahil tatandaan po natin, kung titignan nyo yung pagkalalatag ng desisyon ng ating Commission and Bank dito, lahat ng kaganapan ay niresolve. Lahat ng parte ng mga kaganapan at pangyayari sa loob ng Duterte Youth Party List ay kinonsider. So maari po itong ma-consider din na isiguro ay isang separate na issue at hindi rin po sana siguro natin masasabi na agad-agad ay maaring matapos ito. Lahat po muna ay titignan natin.
And attorney, since nandito na tayo sa topic of reallocating, syempre alam natin upcoming na yung BARM polls this October. Pero sabi nga ni Chairman Garcia, yung redistricting is a little bit tricky, kaya naka-hold ngayon ang pag-print ng mga ballots. Kamusta na po tayo sa issue of redistricting?
Kanina po ay formal nang ipinahiyag ni Chairman Garcia. Kami po ay magkakasama doon po sa update sa stakeholders ng BARM elections dito sa Zamboanga City. Kagagaling lang din po namin dyan ngayon. Ang pahlinaw ng pahayag po ng COMELEC dahil po inadesisyonan nung Miyerkules ng Commission and Bank, hindi po i-implement ng COMELEC ang redistricting measure ng Bangsamoro Parliament para sa October 13, 2025 BARM parliamentary elections. Una, sa kadahilan ng kulang na po kami ng oras sa paghahanda kung ito man ay gagawin namin. Kung matatandaan po natin, nagkaroon po ng paglilipat-lipat ng distrito sa makatuwid. Merong mga kandidato na maaring nandito sa unang distrito na malilipat sa ikalawang distrito. Ito po ay magbabago ng sistema. Kailangan namin baguhin ang programa at baka dumating pa sa punto. Kailangan ipa-source code review ulit. Kailangan ipa-certify ulit dahil magpa-final trusted bill. At Guhin namin ang disenyo ng balota. Ito lang pong parte ng pagre-reprogram, baka abutin kami ng hanggang 15 araw. Hindi pa po natin pinag-uusapan ang pag-imprenta ng balota na sa huling pagtataya namin, kung ito'y ipipilit namin gawin, baka matapos kami ng October 20, lampas sa October 30 na itinakda ng Republic Act 12-123. So malalabag po namin. Isa din sa dahilan ay maaaring magdulot ng pagkagulo sa ating mga kandidato. Tandaan po natin, campaign period na kahapon, merong mga kandidato na nakita na kami ngayon na kandidato dun sa isang distrito, ngunit nalipat ang kanyang munisipyo. Sa kabila, siya ay mananatiling kandidato sa isang distrito na hindi na siya naninirahan. Ito po ay isang napaka-anomalous na situation na hindi po uubra sa ating jurisdiction. At yung ikatlong bagay po, talagang kulang na kami na sa paghahanda ng timelines. Hindi pa natin pinag-uusapan ang packing, ang shipping at ang deployment. Napakarami pa pong kasunod pagkatapos ang pag-iimprenta ng balota. Baka Nobyembre pa natin magawa lahat ng ito kung pipilitin natin. At ang pinakahuli at pinaka-importante po sa lahat, malinaw yung Republic Act 12-123 na naglipat ng halalang ito mula Mayo papuntang Oktubre. Ang intensyon, hindi ito special election. Ito ay karugtong nung may election sa makatwid. Ang botante nung Mayo, siya ring botante ngayon. Ang kandidato nung Mayo na nag-file ng kanilang COC ng Nobyembre ay kandidato rin ngayon. Kung maglilipat-lipat po tayo, ultimo ang ating mga botante ay malilipat ng kanilang bobotohan, sila po ay madidisenfranchise. Sila ay malilito. At ito po yung malaking bagay na iniiwasan natin kung bakit hindi maipapatupad ang redistricting measures.
So may chance ma-postpone pa? Yun ba itatanong mo, Gretch? Kung may chance ma-postpone pa siya from October 13 based on what you just said?
Naku, hindi po. Wala po. Talagang tinuldukan na po ng COMELEC. Tuloy na tuloy ang ating halalan po sa October 13. Batas po ang nagsabi ng halalan yan. Republic Act 12-123.
Spoke, so ibig sabihin, yung magiging upuan ng SULU dito sa parliamentary ay talagang parang vacant na lang. How many seats will be up for grabs?
Una po sa lahat, meron pong 80 na miyembro ang parliament ng BARC. Kung saan 40 po dyan ay manggagaling doon sa Regional Parliament Political Party. At yung 25 po ay dapat supposedly 32 Nabawasan ng 7 na seats for SULU. 5 na lamang po ang ihahalal nila dahil yung 8 na sektor, yan po ay walang halalan din ngayon at po ay assembly yan sila. So ang sinasabi po ng COMELEC ay maaari naman pong mapunan yung 7 seats na yan sa pamamagitan perhaps ng appointment mula sa ating Pangulo o kaya mismo mula sa Chief Minister. Basta ang importante po matuloy ang halalan para dun sa 40 at dun sa 25 na magiging miyembro ng Parliament.
Okay, maraming salamat sa paglilinaw sa mga issue na napakahalaga. And I'm sure people are hanging on to those updates. Maraming salamat for joining us on a Friday night. We have Attorney Rex Laudianco, COMELEC spokesperson, giving us the latest in the BARM elections as well as our party list. Namiss ko ito.
Okay, go
For
Gretchen.
our big picture for tonight. It is veteran actor Edu Manzano embarking on a new profession as a contractor with his Hermes bag and Rolls-Royce umbrella. But no, he doesn't have a new hustle. In fact, these photos are all AI generated. So Edu can take a pot shot at corrupt contractors. Behind him in one of the photos is an unfinished bridge with a sign that says, Ghost Project under construction. In another post, Manzano makes a play on the name of major government infrastructure projects. He calls it Bill. 20% cement, 80% stealing. Hindi ko napansin na AI yung litrato. Nakita ko yan kanina.
Oo nga, kinukwento mo lang sa akin kanina. Nakita mo ba yung post ni Edu?
Alam mo, dapat mag-ingat tayo sa ganyan kasi akala ko totoo.
Oo nga.
Hindi ko napansin. Okay, good to clarify tonight to everyone that was just an AI photo. Hindi po contractor si Edu Manzano. Wala siyang Hermes na kotse.
Isa lang yung alam natin na meron, di ba? On that note, that's it for the big story for this week. Thank you so much for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night and a great weekend.
We are back here on Monday at 7:30 p.m. As usual, we'll see you then.